We're gonna do a little check. Get emotionally prepared for what's about to happen. Hi everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Olivia Poling and I'm a personal trainer out here in Los Angeles, and I'm also a survivor of an eating disorder. First off, I want to start off by saying that this video will be talking mainly about eating disorders. If you have a trigger or anything like that, I'm going to use this right now to say this is a trigger warning. Please do not watch the rest of this video. This video is intended to help other individuals who need help or want to learn about what it's like to have an eating disorder, how to help a loved one, or perhaps like you're trying to figure out if you have one or not, and I'm here to help you. So this is my story and I want to share that, and you know, there's no necessarily like right or wrong in this sense. Like, I'm just going to be sharing my experiences, but I don't want to trigger anyone. So if this is going to trigger you, please go ahead and click out of the video. So I first want to start off by saying that I only ever wanted to film this video and basically ever tell anyone, in the sense of like telling the internet, that I had an eating disorder when I was ready. Like, now I've had the proper amount of time and I've had the proper amount of healing, and I am so happy and comfortable of where I'm at in myself and my life, and I feel like it's time to start helping people. I posted a few TikToks and a few Instagram posts about this, and I'm like thrilled at the feedback that I've gotten, and I'm so honored that so many of you have taken it to heart so much. So kind of just going through a little bit of background, I grew up a ballet dancer, and if you know anything about ballet, gymnastics, figure skating, eating disorders are rampant throughout those sports and art forms. I think for me now, I look at it and I realize that there was 100% some psychological effect that staring at yourself in a mirror for 15 years had on me, and my whole life was performance based. I also did musical theater outside of that, and what ultimately led me and drove me to kind of pushing me off the edge to have an eating disorder, or pushing me into this eating disorder, was I was like, looking and reflecting back now, I was teetering along that line for a long time without me even noticing, and I had those feelings and those kind of that aggressive feeling of like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not skinny enough, and looking for that validation of being very thin from a very young age. But I think what ultimately pushed me was when I was 17 years old, I quit musical theater. I was going to go to college for it, and I wasn't even sure at the time I was going to go to college. I had graduated high school extremely early, and I had broken up with my boyfriend of like a year and a half at the time. So that resulted in me spending a lot of time alone during the day, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. So as you can imagine, as a 17-year-old girl, I was completely lost, and I think that I wanted a sense of control, and I wanted this control so badly in my life that I looked for it and sought it out in different ways, in different forms of my life, which resulted in me controlling my food and controlling my exercise, so much so that it drove me to a form of insanity almost. I think the only way that I could accurately describe how it feels to have an eating disorder is you wake up every single day and you immediately start thinking about food, or what you've eaten yesterday, or what you are going to eat that day, what you're going to eat for breakfast, what you're eating for lunch. Like, you think about how many calories it is, and anything under that camp of food or exercise, in my personal experience, is how I felt with my eating disorder. I felt completely not myself, and what's so interesting, like what's so heartbreaking about this disease, is that this disease robs you of a lot of experiences. I mean, I was a 17, 18, 19-year-old girl, and I wasn't going out with friends. I was staying home all the time. I was hanging out with my parents all the time, and I never put myself together. I never put makeup on, never did my hair. Like, I never tried anything to make myself feel beautiful, because at the time, the more I dug myself into the hole of having this eating disorder, I literally didn't think about me being beautiful. I was like, I'm skinny, and that's what matters. It wasn't even the fact that I felt beautiful, it was I felt thin. And there's a huge distinction between those two things. It is not the same. Like, because it's almost like you're running after this unattainable thing and chasing and chasing and chasing, and any sort of external validation of you're so thin or you're so skinny reaffirms that, and you keep chasing it. And it just, I remember the kind of feeling that I had where I almost felt crazy. You know what I mean? I almost felt just like crazy all the time, and I just couldn't imagine the rest of my life thinking and feeling the way I did, and it was exhausting. And that's one thing that whenever I meet a girl who has the same issues or had the same issues as me, you know, that we bond over, is that how exhausting it was to just exist, because you're so tired of like thinking all the time and constantly worrying and constantly having these ruminating thoughts, like a revolving door in your head. And it was a very emotional time for me. I was like very young, as an adolescent. I was supposed to be having like the beginning of an incredible like life, and I was living with this thing and this disease that was hurting me, and it was a result of something else, and it was a symptom of something else that was really going on with me. Ugh, this makes me so nervous to talk about. And I have some questions here that I have. A lot of you asked a lot of the same questions, and so I'm going to be answering some of those throughout this video, and just kind of going through what I have found with a lot of the similarities. One of the things that I got was how to tell my friends and family, and how it affected my friends and family. For me, like, that was the biggest part, and that's the hardest part for me, was that I lost a lot of friends throughout this experience, because I would isolate myself, or if anyone was willing to like reach out or like, you know, say something to me about it, I got extremely defensive. I would tell them it's not true, that I don't have a problem, that I'm fine, that it's okay, whatever. And even to my parents, I was like, I'm fine, it's okay, and I have it under control, and I'm just healthy, and I'm just losing weight, because it wasn't like I was doing anything obviously wrong. It wasn't like I was, you know, not eating with them at dinner time. It was like I was eating, but was I really? Like, it was more of like, it was more like secretive almost. It was like more of like a secret that I kept so pushed down within myself that as I kept withering away, like, it hurt my friends and family so much. And one of the biggest questions that I got was, how did you come to the conclusion that you needed help? And I think for me, like, I was in that really dark place for a really long time of just, sorry, my sink is so loud, but just not even thinking about the fact that I had an issue at all. And I remember that summer was so emotional for me in so many ways, because I really didn't want to seek help. And the main reason was because I was deathly afraid of gaining weight. Like, gaining weight was my ultimate fear. It was something that I couldn't imagine me being happy and gaining weight at all. And I was like, I want help, but I don't want to gain weight. And I think that when I realized like what I was really thinking in those sentences that were really coming through my mind and things that I was really feeling, I caught myself eventually where I was like, this is not okay. Like, I knew eventually it wasn't okay. And really when the tide started to turn was, I saw on Instagram, I had started my fitness account. At this time in July of 2017, I had started my fitness account, and I had seen other girls post about their experience with eating disorders. And I remember, I have to find her, I remember one girl on Instagram posted something, and she was describing how she felt when she had her eating disorder. The ruminating thoughts, the constant need for to think about food, to talk about food, to your life revolved around it, and exercising, over exercising, and just driving yourself mad essentially. And how she was saying that was wrong, and that's not how everyone thinks. And I literally, shit you not, I was like, wait, not everyone thinks like that? Like, not everybody thinks about food like that? Like, it was a concept that was so lost on me that was not something that people did. And so as I'm kind of discovering that something is wrong with me, I become more afraid. And I'm like, what's gonna happen to me? Like, I don't want to stop, but I think I need help. I think something's wrong, and I think that something's wrong with my brain and something's wrong with me, but I can't stop wanting this result. I can't stop wanting to chase this endless, this need to be so thin. And I think that for me, like, it was just such a emotional experience being a teenager and feeling this way. And finally, I just honestly woke up one day and I was like, I've had enough. I am exhausted. I felt like I had just come out of battle. I felt like I had just put my body through hell, because I had, you know what I mean? I had put my body through so much, and I was so exhausted, and I was so ready to be done fighting this fight. And I went and I told my mom that I think that something was wrong with me, and I had her sit my dad down. I had her sit my siblings down, really, because it was so much for me. I couldn't even do it. Like, I couldn't even face them. And it was such an emotional experience. And I think that even for friends too, like, it was a while before I told them that I realized that something was wrong with me. I was already in therapy. I was already in the process of recovering when I told them that something was wrong with me, because it was such an experience that was so close to my chest, and it was so emotional for me to figure out that something was wrong with me. So I think for asking for help was the best thing I could have ever done, because I mean, I don't know what would have happened to me if I didn't. And I'm fully aware that it is so difficult to ask for help. It was so hard. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever have to do, is tell my mom that I was sick. And I think that I'm so glad that I did. And my best advice in that case would be to go to somebody you trust, and you know that no matter what, that they will love you. They might not say the right thing. They might not do the right thing at first, but that's okay. As long as you are talking to somebody and communicating with somebody about what's going on inside, that's really what's important. So how did I begin the healing process? So for me, I immediately started going to therapy. And in the first session we pinpointed, and I got my diagnosis of what I now have known as anxiety and OCD, and I also was diagnosed with my eating disorder. So I also started getting medicated. I was on medication for a little while. I was on medication for about a year. I personally enjoyed my medication. I did not find it to be difficult for me to be on medication, but it was something that I know that a lot of my peers and friends and people who've gone through very similar things struggle with at times. So I personally was on a very low dosage, so it was not as big of a drastic change for me, but I was medicated for a time. I am not anymore, though. And then this is the thing, is that going through recovery is so different for everybody. And I feel like even now, I still go through periods of my life where I'm recovering from something, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's heartache, whether it's loss, whether it's loss of a job, whether it's mourning this past 2020 and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I mean, now I'm 21 years old. I don't have my whole life mapped out, and I feel like I'm always constantly recovering. So some of the things that I learned in recovery at that time, I still carry through the rest of my life. One of the things that helped me so much was creating a life for myself outside of the life that I had built in the prison that I had built for myself, and kind of forcing myself out of it. One of those things was being social and having friends, and I really pushed people away at the time when I was having my eating disorder and struggling. Was I constantly would push people away, and this is true for pretty much every mental disorder, is that, or an illness, that, you know, that you push people, a lot of people away, and it is something that is a side effect of. And so I got a job at a restaurant, and I was a hostess with a lot of girls who were my age, and they literally saved me because I was able to rediscover what it's like to forge relationships and connection with girls my own age. And I remember how quickly that helped me push myself into a recovery process, and they literally helped so much. So I think a job is helpful. I think a hobby is helpful. I think anything where you can make friends outside of the friendships that you already have is something that can change your life. That kind of segues into the next thing I find for myself, even in today, is having hobbies. Being very well-rounded, opening your mind to a lot of different things. I didn't have a recovery where I had to stop exercising. There is some that I know that you have to stop exercising, but even still, like, you can read, you can, you know, go on walks, you can like you could play chess online. Like, there are so many things that you can do that you can get into, and just even learning about other things, learning about other parts of the world, like, you know, just getting involved in other things that are completely outside of what your life is already like, and learning. You could even learn like a separate language, I don't even know, go on a trip, do something, even just like absolutely anything you could think of. Learn that you are a person first, but before this disease is not you, that your hobbies and your interests and, you know, what you fill your life with is who you are, and helps create and put the pieces together of who you are. This thing that constantly fills your mind is not you. Also, this falls in line with that as well, is following people on social media that inspire you, following people that make you feel good about yourself, or that make you feel comforted. And you know what, now that there's like the mute button, if you can't unfollow them, you can mute them and you don't have to see their stuff, and they would never know. So I think that if an influencer or anything like that is making you feel negatively towards yourself, or towards your body, or towards your mental state, like, there is no harm in unfollowing them. There's no harm in being like, this was just not right for me at the time. They're not a bad person, but like, this is not healthy for me to watch them all the time. Unfollow it, it's not worth it. And I know it seems like a really ridiculous thing, but I swear, like, I started to have a rule where I don't follow anybody that I've never met. I mean, obviously I know that there are celebrities out there, obviously I know of them, obviously I look at their Instagram, but it would never be like I'm constantly ingesting their content, or I'm not constantly ingesting content that I don't want to see. Then this is something that's very subjective, is how to overcome the guilt, and how to not feel guilty when you're eating, how not to constantly think about it, and how to not constantly be concerned about it. For me, like, therapy was everything. Therapy was absolutely everything to get through that, and to really talk to someone. And nowadays there are so many different platforms that you can use to talk to therapists. You can text with therapists, video chat with them. There are so many different platforms, and I can put them down below in the search, or in like the little description as well, that if you ever need a resource. Even in small quantities of your life, like small things in the sense of, like, I love to have morning routines, I love to get up, I love to journal, I love to be up really early, I like to make my coffee, I like to listen to music in the morning. I have a certain kind of music I listen to in the morning. I have my little routines that I do, and I think that those things really, really calm me at the beginning of my day. I listen to podcasts, sometimes I read, sometimes I'll go on a walk. Like, I really try to set my intention for the day, and I really try to check in with myself every single day, or like pretty much any moment of the day that I feel like I need it. So I really try to check in and say, how am I feeling? Am I feeling okay? And if I'm feeling anxious, why am I feeling so anxious right now? what has changed in the past couple of minutes or past couple of hours that has made me feel anxious, and what can I do about it? And if sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Sometimes it's just like, you know what, like you have to accept that you're feeling this certain way today, or accept you're feeling this certain way in this moment, and just know that it's not going to last forever, and just as much as you can try to breathe through it and let it go. And just try to just like acknowledge the feeling, breathe, and then let it go. And the same thing comes with guilt. When you're eating and you're starting to feel guilty, like it's not even enough to, don't even just say deny it. Like for me, I'm just like, I accept that I feel guilty right now. I accept that I feel this way, but I know that it's not true, and I know that this is making me feel this way, and that is not a reality that I'm living in. And that might not work out for everybody. That's how I literally talk to myself. At the time, especially, I don't really do that as much anymore. Thank goodness. But I think that it's really learning how to speak to yourself, and really learning how to heal your thought process, and learning how to heal the way you speak to yourself. But it took a really long time. It took a lot of practice, and I think that just being patient with yourself and knowing that the guilt will pass, and that this too shall pass. If you work at it, and if you're gentle with yourself, and if you're kind to yourself, and if you heal the way you speak to yourself. How to learn to love your body fully. This is something that I find such an odd concept to think about, because a lot of people say, like, we have to accept the bodies that we're in. And I think that's such a weird way to phrase something. I think learning to accept something is more of like something you cannot control. I learned to accept the fact that I was born with blonde hair. Like, I accept that. Like, that is something that I accept. I accept that, like, Los Angeles is always sunny. I accept that. Or I accept that, Seattle is always rainy, or Ohio is always rainy, or whatever. And those are things that you can learn to accept, because it's just something that you cannot change, and that, whatever. But, like, our bodies are such finely tuned instruments, and they... Who's texting? Who's calling? Our bodies are such finely tuned instruments, and they are so intelligent. And the fact that you are able to just self-generate yourself, and like have all these like little tiny things that make up who you are, like all of your cells working so hard to make sure that you operate well and you are okay all the time, every single day, is truly astounding. Like, when you look at the anatomy of your life, of your body, like, it is truly astounding that there are so many human beings on the planet, and that we have evolved so much. And that is not something to accept. That is something to love, and something to celebrate. It is something to be proud of. Like, that you are here, you are thriving, you are living, you're existing, and your life does not, your body doesn't make up who you are. It never will. It is how you make people feel. It's how you feel. It is how you live your life, and the morals and values and gifts that you have in this world. So to say we accept our body is just, it's so weird. It's like, no, like, you are incredible, you are a spectacle, you are an amazing person, you are an amazing human being, you are living, you are standing here today, and that within itself is incredible. And I just think, as I get older, I think about how amazing it is that we all are here, and that we're all living in the same world and existing, and that there's so much left to do for so many people, and that your body is like the one thing I think that doesn't define who you are. It's probably the last thing. Like, I'm sure we've all met people who are incredibly beautiful but incredibly broken, or leave you feeling incredibly sad or upset, or who are people who are mean to you. But you meet people who maybe, who their body isn't somebody you would define as like the better body type by today's standards, and they are more beautiful to you than anyone else in the room. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that I have had so many people in my life with so many different body shapes and sizes, and like, to me, they're all so beautiful. And just because you have a different body type than the girl you see on Instagram, or your friend, or your sister, or your like significant other, I don't know, whoever in your life that you feel like you compare yourself to, doesn't mean that you are unworthy of success or love or like or being successful in your career, money, financial stability, like joy, happiness, like anything. It doesn't mean any of that. So it's like to learn to accept the body that you're in. No, like learn to celebrate it. Learn that you are so special and that people are lucky to be here and to support you and to know you, and your body is the last thing that anyone gets to comment on, and it's yours, and it's the one thing in this world that is yours, and you have control over it. I think that that's all that I have, but I hope that I answered some of your questions. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for giving me this safe space for me to talk freely about this. I genuinely appreciate it so much, and I'm sending you all so much love and healing. I'm also going to be putting more resources down in the bottom, and as well as some Instagrams to follow, TikToks, anything like that, social media to follow that helps a lot with either mental health or eating disorders or anything like that. I'll also be putting down the NEDA website, which is the National Eating Disorders Awareness website. And yeah, so there are so many programs that you can get help. I'll also be putting down the therapy, like the virtual therapy that I know of, down in the box below. But thank you guys so much. I love you all, and I hope you have a beautiful day when you're watching this.